How often is it that you can say that you can pick an elephant up with both hands? Not very often. How often could you pick an elephant up with one hand? Maybe even just a couple of fingers. Well, in order to do that, it has to be one of these. This is the small elephant Hawk-moth. Over many years, between 20 and 30 years really, the message that Dilys and I always wanted to get over to the public was that our invertebrates are vitally important in the grand scheme of things. It's all right everybody giving lots of press to bats and badgers and foxes and newts and toads and frogs. Everything down the line depends on invertebrates, and we need good numbers of invertebrates in order for everything else to survive. Everything has a part to play, and everything is in the food chain somewhere. But one of the ways we used to use to get the message across was to broadcast and to publicise the species that Dilys and I recorded on a daily basis. Now, unfortunately for the majority of the public, not everything that we could find was as beautiful as this small elephant Hawk-moth here. This is one of the few Hawk-moths in the UK, or that we get in the UK, that I've not really featured on this channel before. It's turned up in a moth trapping video last year from Equine, but it's never been the sole focus of attention. Today it is, and it's a brilliant moth for using to engage with the public such fabulous coloration as this. It's the small relative of the larger elephant Hawk-moth, sometimes called the large elephant Hawk-moth, as if we needed to differentiate, or we weren't able to differentiate the two on size. And this is quite considerably smaller than the elephant Hawk-moth, but it's no less beautiful. In fact, I'd go so far as to say it's more contrastingly beautiful. Although the colours involved here, that bright Barbie pink and that almost golden olive green, are pretty much the same, the more contrasting on this delightful moth. And on the Barbie pink abdomen that only has that hint of gold and olive coloration on top of the abdomen, we have 4 white spots, the purpose of which, no idea. Mother Nature just must have had a little bit of white paint to spare, and so decided to put them on the sides of what is an absolute beauty of a moth. Those little white flecks on the abdomen, I can see now that when viewed from the side there's actually more than 4 from what could be seen above. Beautiful little details like that, that unless you look at something really closely, you're hardly ever really going to notice them. And I wonder how many people have noticed those markings when they've seen the moth arrive at the trap. But you can see the bright pink nature and coloration of the abdomen. It's a probably deeper pink than on large elephant or elephant Hawk-moth, but still absolutely beautiful. Those eyes, I do like Hawk-moth's eyes. They always look as though they're looking at you. Almost looks as if they've got an iris, but they haven't. Obviously the eyes are completely compound. What you can also see from the side here is just how powerfully built Hawk-moths are, with that large, quite robust abdomen full of muscles enabling powerful and fast flight, and where this moth tends to fly. It's usually the heathland areas and drier parts of Nottinghamshire on sandy soils, but as I say, this has now become a garden moth, not recorded anywhere, I don't think, in Nottinghamshire in any numbers, just the occasional singletons that turn up. And what a fabulous thing to turn up to. So that's the small elephant hawk moth. An absolute beauty of a moth. And if a moth has an ability to get the message over to the public that don't know anything about moths and assume that moths are just dull and brown and hairy, then this is one such species that can overcome that. People are often surprised when they see just how beautiful many moths can be. Not everybody gets the chance to see one of these. It's, say, not a common moth at light. But if you get the chance to see one of these, you won't be disappointed. Thankfully, its status in knots has probably changed in the last 20 or so years, and it's become more widespread, less restricted to the habitats that it used to be restricted to. It's a cracking thing, and a moth that many people will no doubt adore when they turn up in their MV light or actinic light. But one of the more important aspects personally for me is that this is a moth that can get a message across. A message to people that our insects are indeed beautiful. They might not all be beautifully coloured like small elephant hawk moth here, but they're all beautiful or beautifully marked. We need to appreciate our insects a lot more than what we do. We need to give them more consideration. This is a moth considerably worthy of more consideration. It's a beauty.